welcome back this morning. And the papers, all of them, have the Mr. Jaco's story, Daily Graphic, the Daily Guide, the Finder, the Times, and several others. That's the big one this morning. But apart from that, the Bank of Ghana is also in the news. The collapse of 5 banks into Consolidated Bank. The Guide has the EC story, Madam Charlotte over a V8 vehicle, and of course the BNFT talks about the army worm and e-waste. These are some of the stories here. My guest this morning, from my extreme left, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Entrepreneurship Innovation Program, John Kuma, is here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing great.
I'm doing very well.
Thanks for your time.
There's good news in the air this evening, so
great.
Maybe you give me 1 minute to talk
I'll definitely do that. I'll definitely do that. And then Kojo Puku talks a lot about energy. He's an energy analyst. He's joining us this morning. Good morning, too.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing great.
I'm very well. How are you? It's been a while.
Yes, I have been around. You are the one missing. Good, you are back home.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming home. And then Sammy Gyamfi is a member of the NDC's team. He's vying for the National Communications Officer of the party.
That's correct.
Oh, okay. All right. Welcome, too.
Thank
so
you.
This morning, a lot of issues about the Jaco, but let me give John a minute. John is doing disbursement this morning.
Well, His Excellency, the President, Akufo-Addo, will be disbursing to 1,350 beneficiaries of the NEIP program. When we did the first
1,200.
1,350. The funds ranges from 10,000 cities to 100,000 Ghana cedis. When we did the first call for proposal, we received 7,000 applications throughout the country. And all the 7,000 applicants were trained. They were trained through the various hubs that we have across the country. And based on recommendations from the hubs and our own internal committees, we have settled on 1,350 businesses to receive financial support from His Excellency the President. So the event is this evening at the Jubilee House Banquet Hall. It's strictly by invitation.
5 p.m. I'm told.
5 p.m. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I want to put the good news out there before we go to the main agenda for the day.
All right. So beneficial kudos to you for your effort in getting the support. Let's see the outcome, the fruits of that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get more information from that issue. Right. Sammy, no, I also get a chance to talk about your fight for the National Communications Officer of the party. But let's start this morning. John, again, let me start with you.
Okay.
The call was for him to step down. The president has done exactly that. Let me read a bit of how the Daily Graphic put the story. It says the President Akufo-Addo has fired the Minister of Energy, Mr. botched, with immediate effect. Now, a statement signed by Mr. Eugene Ahim, the Director of Communications at the Jubilee House, and issued in Accra yesterday, said the President has, by that letter dated August 6, relieved the Minister of his duties. It did not assign any reason for Mr. Jaco's dismissal, but some governance watchers believe it may have something to do with the Africa and Middle East Resources Investment Group. That's the AMERI group deal. The Lands and Natural Resources Minister, Mr. Peter, will act, we're told, now until another energy minister is appointed. That's the story. That's how Daily Graphic put it. John, so the president has listened to the civil society?
Exactly. That was the clarion call. I listened to Newsfile this weekend, and almost all the senior journalists who were on the program were asking the president to take action in respect of this matter. His Excellency has acted. I think that the signal is very clear, especially to all of us who are appointees under his government, that you must always act within the confines of his rules, otherwise you be disciplined. And I think that it shows the president as a very decisive leader who will take action whenever it's necessary, and irrespective of your stature in our politics or governance, he's prepared to act So I hope that it adds to the good culture of governance that we are all hoping to have in our country. That's the essence of democracy. People put you there on their behalf. And when the voices of the masses say that we are not happy, do A, B, C, D, and you are a listening government, that is what you do. And I think His Excellency has done well. It's not a pleasant decision. And especially those of us in the NPP and who are also part of the government, we don't hope for such to happen to any appointee. But these things are inevitable. And anytime these things happen, it shows that we have a leader who is prepared to be disciplined and to stay on track and to do what the will of the people are. So I want to commend His Excellency for his brave decision and to also encourage Honorable Ejako to be strong. It is not the end. I mean, we have seen people who have been disciplined and yet called back to work again. It's not the end of the road. And Shakespeare said that every misfortune may be a blessing in disguise. So we should take it in our good strides and know that nobody is indispensable in life. But when the time comes, there's a lesson to learn from it and then you move on. I want to encourage him and especially all people who believed in his leadership that he's still part of the NPP, he's still part of the government, and we will still, I believe, continue to rely on his wealth of knowledge, especially in the energy sector, and he'll be consulted in so many ways as we move on. So we should take it easy and follow the directions of His Excellency the
What
President.
about those who argue that Mr. Jacob had only put in a proposal? Parliament, as an institution, its mandate is to be able to check some of these. The proposal is sent, Parliament take a look at it and says, look, this is too much, go back and come again. So the argument is that why sack him for making a proposal?
Well, the President has so much information that may not be available to you and I. And at any point that he takes a decision, he's well informed about the circumstances of all the actions that have taken place. So let's trust the judgment of the President, who thinks that at this point in time, the best way to deal with this matter is to ask him to step aside. And then we continue to work to put the energy sector in the right track. So it's not the end, as I have said.
Okay, so we should leave that, perhaps, the reason to the President.
I think so. And
could he have been acting because of the pressure from society, civil society?
Well, I wouldn't say it's pressure. As I've told you, President has wealth of intelligence on all matters in this country, and he's briefed on all issues. So I strongly believe that he's made these decisions based on the circumstances of the matter. And we have heard about ministers suspended and getting reinstated after investigations. So let's allow the President, who at this point thinks that the energy minister must step aside. If over a time he thinks that he can play another role within the government, that will be his decision and judgment to make. But we are solidly behind the President. We think that he has been very responsive to the calls by Ghanaians, especially civil society, who thought that things haven't gone well and something needed to be done. He has done it, and I think we must commend the President for his bold step.
I'm grateful. John, Sammy, let me come to you. The minority wanted him to go. He's gone. Satisfied?
Thank you, Bright. I would like to make a couple of points, just about 4 points on this matter. And I would want to start by commending the NDC Minority Caucus in Parliament, the various civil society organizations and energy think tanks like the Institute of Energy Security, ASEP, Imani, the Senior Staff Association of VRA, and all patriotic Ghanaians who mustered the courage to speak against this dubious transaction. I salute their vigilance. I salute their courage and resilience, because in spite of the vilification, in spite of the intimidation and attacks, they stood their ground, and they've helped us to expel from government one of the chief architects of this scandalous and dubious transaction. So I would want to commend them highly for their vigilance and their resilience as far as this matter is concerned. Because you see, like I told you the last time when I was in this studio, this nation-wrecking agreement, this fraudulent agreement could have only been cooked by officials who are criminally minded, who are not mindful of the national interest, who are not mindful of the economic plight of the Ghanaian, and who only think about their pockets. And this matter speaks volumes of the pervasiveness of corruption in this government, and how certain officials of this government are hell-bent on fleecing the state coffers. And I thank the minority and all these civil society groups and all of us who exposed this fraudulent deal. You see, the deal didn't just make sense, because what the deal sought to do was to impose more electricity tariffs on the already burdened Ghanaian. And through this deal, Ghana would have lost in excess of $400 million, billions of Ghana cedis, as a result of this deal. And so this is a very serious matter, and it should not be taken lightly at all. Now, having said that, let me deal with the attempts by some people to cover up the complicity of the president in this matter. You see, the complicity of President Akufo-Addo in this fraud is glaringly clear. The evidence is there to show that the president was the chief architect. The president was the main culprit in this matter.
Sammy, that the minister took a decision. The president is asked him to leave. How is that?
I will explain that to you. Like you rightly pointed out, you see, we are running an executive form of governance, the presidential form of governance. All the ministers of states we have now are representatives of the president who serve at his behest. You understand? And so no minister of state has the power to table anything before the August House of Parliament for approval until the president has given his assent. Now, we know that on the 24th of July this year, Mr. Botched wrote to His Excellency the President requesting his approval for this novation and amendment agreement to the AMERI deal. Botched on his own did not present that agreement or that bill to Parliament. He sought the President's approval. And I have before me the President's approval dated 25th July 2018. The request went to him on the 24th of July, and with the speed of light and in record time, without any due diligence, he approved this deal. You understand? And so he cannot turn around.
So that is why you alleged.
Yes. And this is, if I can just read portions of the letter. The letter reads, I refer to your letter dated 24th July 2015 on the above subject matter. The President of the Republic has granted executive approval for the novation and amendment agreement dated July 20th. So the agreement was signed on the 20th of July. It went to the president for approval on the 24th. And in less than 24 hours, the president of the Republic of Ghana gave his approval. Today he's telling us that he was misled. How was he misled?
Well, that's not
he
official.
No, you know that Botched and the statesman are, if you like, shadow spokespersons for the president. And if you look at the 3rd August, Friday, the 3rd August edition of the statement, page 2, it is there that the president was misled. In any case, what can be the reason for the dismissal of Botched if the president was not misled, as they claim? Now, the point I'm making here is that that position is not sincere. That position is not candid. Because if you read this letter makes reference to the novation and amendment agreement, which we all saw, which we all read. If I, as a layperson, could read that agreement and decipher that that agreement was a fraudulent agreement which was not in the interest of this country, if ASEP, if IES, if the Senior Staff Association of VRA could read that agreement and come to the conclusion that that agreement was a dubious agreement, are you telling me that the president, who is a lawyer of many years standing, who has about 40 years at the bar, a president of this who has been in government, has a wealth of experience in government, could not see that this agreement was dubious? They should give us further and better particulars of the so-called, misleading representations that Botched Jaco made. So we will not accept that, and we will not fall for the sham.
The firing isn't an end?
Not at all, because you see, because the president himself is the chief culprit. Again, we know because we've been in government before, and we know the processes that transactions like this are supposed to be subjected to. You either approve transactions like this by cabinet approval or by an executive approval. Now, the difference here is that you only resort to an executive approval when the transaction is an urgent transaction or an emergency transaction.
Do you think this is not?
It is not, because we have energy sufficiency as we speak now. We are not in doomsday. We are not in any energy crisis. So this deal should not have been subjected to an executive approval. This deal did not have the signature of the Minister of Finance. This deal did not receive the legal opinion of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. The electricity tariff proposals in there had not received the approval of the PURC, and yet the president, who is a lawyer, still went ahead to approve this deal. So I'm coming. If I can just wrap up on the second point.
Wrap up, because I want John to react before I've been
No. He has had his time.
No.
Sammy, please go on. Allegations, and you won't expect me to come in.
So the deal received his tacit approval. He gave his blessing to it, and clearly, right now, what is happening is that his integrity is sinking. He's desperate to save his face, and that is why he has resorted to this face-saving gimmick by sacking Botched Jaco. But we will not fall for that. Okay. And if I can just conclude my submission, lastly, by making my last point. You see, this whole discussion reveals the deceitfulness and the dishonesty of this government. These are the people who told us somewhere in December 2015, when the original AMERI deal was executed, that the deal was a fraudulent deal because it had been padded by an amount of $150 million. He said the deal was tainted with fraud, and that if elected, they were going to abrogate the deal. Now, Ghanaians vote for you. You come to office, you suspend payments to AMERI, you harass formal government officials who engage in the execution of the original deal, you constitute a 17-member committee who all drew the allowances from the state coffers. This 17-member committee traveled to Dubai to investigate AMERI at the expense of AMERI, so they conflicted themselves. At the end of the day, their work was rendered nugatory because your own Attorney General issued a legal opinion telling you that that original deal was executed in accordance with law, contrary to the claims you had made in opposition. Okay. Now, in spite of the financial loss you have caused us, you have turned around. You have betrayed the trust of the people who elected you into office, and you are rather seeking to fleece the state through this so-called renegotiated deal. Okay. But for the vigilance
I am coming back to you.
Would we be having this discussion?
Sammy, I'm coming back to you. I wanted
if you bring Kuma in.
Just a minute.
I don't know. Just a minute. Is that a quick reaction? I'm not getting my phone. I'll come to you. If I could finish, you react. Relax. John, so he cites the dates from 20 to 24th to 25th, and then when it was agreed on, and suggests that because of that, the president is complicit in it. That's what I want you to react.
It's so disgusting listening to NDC, who have brought this fraud on this country. The AMERI deal. Today he's praising Imani, ASEP, and civil society for talking and raising eyebrow about AMERI. What happened under the NDC? They said they had a dead goat syndrome. They will not listen to anybody. In the midst of all the opposition and the fraud perpetuated on Ghanaians by the NDC. AMERI is not an MPP scandal. It's an NDC scandal. They brought it on Ghanaians. And it is established that AMERI was padded with an extra sum of $150 million corruption deal by the NDC government. And they sit on TV today to talk about fraud. Look, this is a government that is prepared to say we have misled, or we have been misled to take a wrong step. We have reversed it. That is an honest position compared to somebody who has padded the AMERI contract with extra $150 million and has the point today to raise eyebrows.
Is it your suggestion that the date is raising suggests
but as for the dates, I don't see anything as for the dates, I can assure you that it is normal practice in this government that when applications go before officers, they work within time and as quickly as possible based on available information at any point in time. What is wrong but for the subsequent revelation of issues that came up, what would be wrong if the executive approval is given to a letter or a request by a minister within 2 days? There's nothing wrong. It is strange that people like Sammy, Gyamfi, and the NDC now talk about dishonesty and fraud in AMERI. Let me bring strange.
I'll come to you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, now let's come in here.
The NDC nor the MPP should utter a word on this deal. They are as bad as each other. Okay? The NDC is as bad because they brought an ill onto Ghana. The MPP did not understand the ill that was brought into Ghana. They jumped on an euphoria and said it was a bad deal, not understanding what they are calling a bad deal. ASAP and the rest who first sounded the chord of a bad deal, even before the 150 million pardon came about. The AMERI deal that the NDC did is not a bad deal only because of the 150 million.
Right.
It's a bad deal because, one, if you look at the tariff structure, which is the 14.59 cents that Ghanaians are paying since day one of this deal, okay, it creates unnecessary burden on Ghanaians. You can't do a deal for 20 years, 20 good years. You sign an agreement to give somebody a fuel tariff of 8 cents for 20 years. At the time when you signed the agreement, fuel was between $50 and $54. But you gave somebody a constant variable of 8 cents per kilowatt hour in the fuel arrangement. So look, when some of us spoke against the AMERI deal, the original one, right, it wasn't because of politics. And the NDC, to me, doesn't have the space to criticize anything because they didn't listen when we first spoke. Okay? Now, let's fast forward. When about a week and a half ago, Ben Boachi called me and said, Kojo, have you heard that the new deal is going through Parliament? I'm like, are you serious? Let me see what the minister is sending to Parliament. He sent me the memorandum which the minister was sending to Parliament. In less than 20 minutes of glancing through, I could point out 3 or 4 things that was wrong with that thing. Okay?
That's the renegotiated
the renegotiated innovation deal that was being sent to Parliament. I'm like, but the minister can't be sending this to Parliament because this deal is worse than the one the NDC did. So we started working the phones. We are calling the deputy, the Honorable Gyamfi, the chairman of the subcommittee, the parliamentarians we know. We were trying to tell them, look, please reject this deal because it's a very bad deal. Then we got information on Thursday evening that the minister didn't have certain documents which he was asked for. Okay, so the deal will not go through. That is when the media now picked up the story. But some of us had already been working it to stop it because we felt that the maths did not make sense. If in the business of trying to right a wrong, you now make a wrong. You see, the minister went to the president, and let me address this issue of the president being complicit. The president can't be complicit because I'm not going to go on the date. Look, a minister is the one being given a sector to run. He has the advice of all the technocrats and the advisors. If he goes to the president and says that, look, I'm going to make a $400 million savings within 15 years. And it turns out that there is no 400 million savings. In fact, the only savings Ghana make is 89 million in 2.5 years. The rest, we are actually losing money. Because you look at the 5 years that the AMERI deal, the existing deal was to be in place, we are paying 7.59 cents for 5 years. After 5 years, for 5 to 15 years, we'll be paying 10.4 cents. The minister gave the miscellaneous people 11.71 cents for 11 years, meaning that he gave them a fuel constant of 7 cents for 15 years. NDC gave 8 cents.
8 cents.
So he has reduced the fuel cost by 1. Then he has also reduced the capacity charge from 5.6 to 3.8. So he has also made a savings of 1.8 cents on there. So to him, in his thinking, he has done
in the thinking of the
in the
president.
thinking of the minister,
Okay.
which is what he submitted to the president. He has made a savings, but because of the timeline which you want to point out, the negotiations was finished on the 23rd. They wrote to the minister 20th, around the 20th.
Right.
They wrote to the president. They got a reply on the 23rd. The thing was rushed to parliament because parliament was rising. But in the culture of these rushing things to parliament, this thing was not a good thing for the country.
Could you let me ask you this before you continue? I hope I'm not distracting you. If somebody questions that, if a first deal was 510 and you talk about review and the figure that comes up is more than that, is it a legitimate question to ask?
Yes, because the MPP, when they said that Ghanaians have been cheated, okay, the baseline, the starting point for anybody on this AMERI deal is $350 million.
So it was
You
overpriced.
don't know. If you, basically what I'm saying is that if you campaign that there's a 150 million middleman pardon and you are against it and Ghanaians have been cheated of 150 million, your starting point in any negotiation is the 350 million that you think Ghanaians should pay. Anything more than that, you've not done the best for Ghanaians. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
So what I'm trying to get across is that, look, let's not make this an MDC MPP matter.
You know the way.
No, but the point is that my my brother here wants to make it look like the NDC had a good thing for Ghana. They didn't.
It's so funny.
Look, the 14 cents that we are paying now with an 8 cents per kilowatt hour fuel is too much. And we are paying it now. And you see, they did a good thing. They took it through all the processes, got parliament using their majority to approve it without listening. So you can't change it. The good thing for me and you, why we can discuss this deal now, and Honorable Gyamfi has lost his job, is because he didn't have the documents, and the president, to me, people should give him credit.
Yeah.
Because look, I can assure you that when the president was given a second opinion, the president advised that, look, this deal shouldn't go ahead. So he was given a second opinion.
Should he have sought for that second opinion?
No, not initially when the minister comes to him. If the president does that, he'll never run this country.
Yeah.
When your minister comes to you and you always second doubt them, you will never run this country. But when you are given the opportunity, look at the timeline. Even if this thing went to cabinet, knowing the Honorable Gyamfi, I know, he would have had his answers and all his cabinet ministers would have asked him questions, he would have answered. And cabinet would have passed it. So whether he went to cabinet or not, doesn't make a difference, because Honorable Gyamfi is very opinionated and he knows his stuff, he knows his onions. So he would have gone to cabinet and passed this thing, and all his ministers, maybe he would have gotten 100% approval. Some ministers would have had their doubts on what he's doing, but the majority would have passed it for him and the thing would have gone through. But the president on council, when news got to him that, hey, this thing that has gone to parliament, finance has not signed it, there is no attorney general. And people are saying that he should have known that. No, he wouldn't, because they all work in parallel. The president would know, because the law states that if something affects the government and you are sending a memo to parliament, the finance minister should sign. So Mr. Jaku knows that, because the ECG memorandum that he took on the ECG concession, when he presented it to the subcommittee, I was there. It was signed by both ministers, finance minister and the energy minister. So he knows that.
Okay.
So if you take something to parliament without the other signature, nobody should blame the president. He acted on the council at the time he acted on.
Could I come back to you? I want us to take a look at how to go now from where we are. But let me go to Sammy. Sammy, now he's trying to explain why perhaps the president cannot, or he cannot be faulted in this. And he showed you why all this.
Right, I am vehemently opposed to the views expressed by my co-panelists on this show. And I would want to start with that of my senior brother, John Kuma. You see, my goodness, right, the MPP has no shame. If John Kuma can sit in the studios of TV3 this morning and still accuse the formal NDC regime of fraud, then he has no shame.
But
because please, right, allow me to make my points. Allow me to make my points.
The argument is that the first deal is equally as
I'm coming to that. That is why I am saying that if he can say that, then he has no shame. Because it is not true. He is a lawyer. He knows that it is trite legal knowledge that fraud vitiates all. And if they have any evidence that the original agreement was fraught with fraud, why haven't they abrogated the agreement till date? Do you think that governance is all about talking? You accuse a company of perpetrating fraud against the state. You constitute a 17-member committee to investigate the committee. Then you go to that same committee for money to finance your trip to Dubai to drink tea, and you tell us that that company has defrauded you. Where is the evidence that that deal was padded?
So for you,
I'm making a point.
Sammy, listen, so for you, it was not a bad deal.
It is not about it being a bad. I'm saying that it was one of their grand deceptions. It was a lie. All the things they said that the deal was a fraudulent deal. It was a good deal, and that is what I'm explaining.
Okay,
you understand, right? That is what I'm explaining. Because you see, you made a certain allegation in opposition on the basis of which you were elected into office. You were elected into office. You have not been able to adduce a scintilla of evidence to buttress your claim that the deal was fraught with fraud. You have not been able to abrogate it. Rather, we have seen a legal opinion uttered by your own Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Madam Gloria Akufo, giving the original deal a clean bill of health and indicating that the deal was signed in accordance with law and that there is no fraud in it. In any case, having they paid AMERI through their subcontractors, Medca, he will know, since they assumed office. They have not abrogated 510 million.
No, John is trying. I'm coming to you.
They have not abrogated the so-called fraudulent $510 million deal. They have paid. We paid $102 million for the first year. They have paid about $70 million. And you sit here and you say that the deal was a fraudulent deal when you have paid the company. What do you take us for? Do you think we are children and that we cannot read in between the lines? So that argument falls down completely. Now, let me deal with the issues that my brother raised. That, the deal was not a good deal. I don't get him saying that it was a fraudulent deal like the MPP said. He says that it wasn't a good deal because the charges were high. That is his opinion and I respect that. But I disagree. Because we explained, and we still stand by that explanation, that we did not have the money ourselves to procure that thermal plant. And that we use the BOOT methodology. What they therefore meant was that AMERI was supposed to go and find their own money, acquire the plant, own it, operate it, generate energy for us, we sell, and then we pay them. Once you are using such a high purchase methodology to acquire a plant, you are obviously going to pay more. Until date, nobody has been able to show any evidence or any proof that that deal was padded. So he's entitled to his opinion. He can say it was not a good deal, but we think that it was a good deal.
Right.
Now, my point of departure from him, again, is his attempt to extricate the president from blame in this matter. That will not wash, because you see, he said that immediately he read the Innovation and Amendment Agreement, he saw that there was something wrong with it. Now, my brother, are you suggesting that the president cannot read and understand like you?
But he wasn't giving that document.
Okay, wait.
The president wasn't giving that document.
Please, he was giving the document because the letter of approval. Hold on.
There was a letter. Let me clarify. You said something. Let me clarify it, please. The memorandum was sent to Parliament, which is a different arm of government.
No, it is not true.
Oh,
so you can finish.
Let me explain. Parliament is a different arm of Parliament.
No. What you're saying is not even legally possible. But because before a minister can table a deal before Parliament, that deal should have received the approval of the president.
Yes, but the letter.
The approval was dated 24th July. Let me finish. Let me finish. You can do your job.
Let me educate.
Because for me, you are not educating. You are misinformed.
I think the issue is
on this issue whether you are not getting your facts correct.
The full document. I come to you.
No. Please let me just let me finish. 1 minute, please.
I wanted us to
the memorandum which I read, which had the mistakes in there.
That's a full document.
That was the memorandum sent to Parliament. What the president got was a letter
So what the document is.
If you read the document, if you read the letter, it says that he
now
in your desperation to exonerate the president, you are worsening his position.
Okay.
What you're saying is that the
But
president.
when you think your propaganda makes the president.
You allow.
He can do his propaganda.
I can understand
Let's do this
why you are
nicely
discomfort.
so that
Allow
our
me
viewers
to
will
have my
get
time.
something.
You are worsening the position of the president because you are exposing the president as a very incompetent leader. You are saying that the president just read a letter without the benefit of reviewing an agreement and gave his blessing for an agreement he had not seen. That is what you are saying.
Because
what you are saying is even a lie. So I will explain to you why that is a lie. Now let me read this letter to you. He says, the president of the Republic of Ghana has granted executive approval for the novation, it doesn't refer to a letter, for the novation and amendment agreement dated July 20, 2018 between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Minister for Energy, or his authorized representative, the Volta River Authority VRA, Africa and Middle East Resources Investment Group AMERI Energy, AMERI Energy Power Equipment Trading LLC, Power Projects, blah blah blah, and he says miscellaneous international trading company for the operation and maintenance of the existing 250
So based on this, you think you saw the
heading.
That is the meaning.
Read the heading of the letter.
Please, request. The heading is this. You are still worsening your position, my brother. You cannot defend any of this.
Go ahead.
I will read the heading to you again because facts no lie. You see,
read the
he says request for executive approval, novation and amendment agreement of the build, own, operate and transfer BOT agreement between the government of the Republic of Ghana, represented by the Ministry of Power and Africa and Middle East Resources Investment Group, AMERI Energy. So you see,
so what's your
you've gotten it wrong.
So right,
so let me make
it wrong. Right,
I'm coming to
Can I make my point?
Your argument is that the letter is referring to the agreement.
Yes.
So the president saw the
And
document. That is your argument.
I have read it to you. Facts are sacred, right?
Okay.
And the president did
John,
not
please,
give. The president did not approve the letter. The president approved the letter.
That agreement.
An agreement. So to sit here and suggest that the president was so ignorant that he just read a letter without the benefiting of reviewing the agreement and actually gave executive approval for the agreement, you are worsening the position of the president. That is not fair to the president.
Okay.
Now the point I am making here, please, I was quiet when they were speaking. Right. Let me make my point.
You see, I don't have a lot of time.
I still maintain that the president is complicit in the matter, because the same document which was submitted to him was the same document we all reviewed.
We have heard you.
And if we as laypersons, yes, and again, you see, the timing of this whole issue is what worries me. It is what I find painful. Right? We are living in a country today where sick people are lying on bed floors in a hospital. We are living in a country today where the vast majority of our people are still hewers of food and water. The economic conditions of the people of this country are not sick people
in this country.
Instead of you
what moral justification do you even
on the
have?
Concrete problems affecting the Ghanaian populace and resolving these conditions so that we can have some relief, you are thinking about how you can steal from the people of this country. Civil society organizations. Is that not
Sammy, you can make your point without impeding.
No, but don't worry about that. Allow me to respond to it. So won't you allow
Sammy, let me get John to Sammy, you have made your point. Let me get John.
Let's not destroy the program. You have made your point. But you see clearly,
you are interjecting me. But you know the last time you were here, you lied that you are constructed 1940s.
The president has even moved out 36. Let me tell you. Please allow John. Sammy, you have gone about lying on all networks that I have put out a lie. The last time I gave you a video, and I hope that you play the video for him to see. I am not like the NDC who will put out artistic impression of projects. Okay, yesterday the president put out 36 in different stages. I even put out 19. We are not like the NDC. They are going to see the projects. Now back to the fraud of the NDC, and everybody knows that every independent observer, and even on this program, can attest to the fact that His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo is incorruptible. And the NDC is fraudulent. AMERI deal is an NDC fraud. Let me tell you, first of all, NDC must not compare themselves to NPP. In the first place, there is no deal. As far as the NPP government is concerned, there is no deal. So they cannot even begin to compare their fraud to please allow. These are processes that must end in something. Okay? And he says that somebody is a lawyer. He is also becoming a lawyer if he's not already a lawyer. Yes, I'm a lawyer. So you will learn very soon that processes leading to a contract is not a contract. Yes.
And fraud is not a vitiating factor anymore.
Look, a fraud that is approved by your own parliament cannot be vitiated ordinarily. So let me tell you, they have perpetuated fraud on Ghanaians. And everybody knows the cost of this AMERI deal and how much they are charging us for. But unfortunately, with their majority in parliament, what did they do? Now he's talking about the fact that because they have approved and all legal processes have been followed, and we cannot set aside with that judgment dead, so there is no fraud. There is massive fraud. Okay. Look, I'm coming. Quickly wrap up. Let me get wrapping up. I want us to take a look at wrapping up. It's like what my brother said. When they got to know about the deal going to parliament, they raised red flags. Right. Now, assuming parliament had gone about in the Yentie mood of the NDC and approved this second deal, then even though there will be fraudulent indications in the contract, we couldn't do anything about it because we have ratified it. Now the NDC, I'm coming. So finally, the NDC, even though they knew the AMERI deal was fraudulent, they went ahead to bamboozle their way through their majority in parliament and approved it. So the NDC has no morality. They talk about steps all that has happened.
Politicians, your microphones are off.
But you're only talking. Your microphones are off. I'm just wrapping up.
No, your microphones are off. Let me get Kojo to wrap up, gentlemen. Kojo,
I like to educate.
Kojo, yes. Let's quickly wrap up for me. We don't have a lot of time.
My brother Gyamfi said that because the deal was agreed, what I spoke of the 8 cents was just the fuel charge. What the deal take care of the recovery. Look, initially when it came up that the NDC have done this deal back in 2015, 2014, I was on every platform defending the AMERI deal because I thought as a businessman, if you don't have money and you go into the market, you don't have money, and somebody is able to give you a machine to deliver the machine in record time, because before we all made this noise, the AMERI had already delivered the machine to Ghana.
So that was not fraud.
No. My brother, don't put somebody's words.
Don't get distracted.
What I'm saying is that there was a capacity charge that takes care of the cost recovery. So that is not the 8 cents that I was talking about. Okay. But let me now end this and say, look, both are as bad as each other.
How do we?
We don't have a deal. We don't even have a deal. No. Your microphones are off. So why we give it back?
Politicians. How do we move?
Yeah. Let me tell you.
We don't use $500 million.
But for your
business, have a deal.
And you want to equalize?
No.
You want to rationalize?
Please, let's
let me listen.
This agreement is worse than original. You know that you are worse off. You have signed a fraudulent agreement.
Gentlemen, I have to wrap up the conversation.
And you know that America is gone. They signed a fraudulent agreement. Is what we are putting here.
Sammy Gyamfi is a member of the NDC. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up the conversation. Stay here.